Okay. Okay. Now we have a quorum. So, being 1:35, I will call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order, Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. Pledge of Allegiance. I'm new at this yet. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Is there any public comment from anyone in the audience? Okay, thank you. I need a motion for approval of the minutes from January 7th, 2025.
So move.
Jason, okay. Any comments or, all right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Policy issues, discussion and potential committee determination, none. Operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy, A. Discussion and possible action by Public Safety Committee. A1, resolution recognizing Brian Robert Feeney, and I'm going to have Supervisor Jung speak to this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This resolution was brought up to me by several constituents in the local area here who were students of Mr. Brian Feeney. Mr. Feeney, I had the pleasure of working with Mr. Feeney on the Village of Weston Board, specifically in the Public Safety Department, the Public Safety Committee, and I've always respected his leadership, his cool and level-minded, and his commitment to public safety. I've respected him and appreciated his service to our community, even on the Safer Board as well. His leadership has always been respected, and his mentorship was always great. He served on the Marathon County Highways Commission, and in addition, he served as the deputy chief of the Wisconsin State Fair Police Department. But he was also a reserve deputy for the Marathon County Sheriff's Office, and his impact just didn't end there. He has been an instructor at NTC, mentoring and teaching hundreds of law enforcement officers. And this year, he has announced his retirement, and he has contributed so much to our community and to ensuring the safety of our community. So with that, his students came up to me and spoke with me about passing a resolution, and this is the least we could do in honoring and recognizing his contributions to our community. I spoke with Sheriff Billup, who's also expressed his support of this as well too. And with that background, I would also make a motion to approve this resolution as well.
Do we have a second? Jason, thank you. Any comments from anyone? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And we have something before you guys leave. We're going to sign it today so that it can be, the county seal put on it, and then you would like to take it in person to Mr. Feeney. Thank you. All right, 6A2, consideration whether to approve District Attorney's Office application for the following grants. Ruth, are you doing this?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. You want to? I have a question for Corp Counsel. Do we have to do separate votes on, or can we do this as a vote on one
I would say we should do them separate.
separate? Okay.
Okay, I'm just coming to ask support in applying for 4 different grants. For the success of our deflection program is doing really well, and we can use additional supports. Just in transparency, the BJA grants were taken off the website. They were posted in January with the thought that they probably will get reposted within the next couple of weeks, since they have been annually posted for a while, just to see if we can get approval so I can get moving on meeting with North Central Healthcare and the Sheriff's Office and the jail, and collaborating on these grants. So basically, we're just looking at supports for a deflection program in areas right now where there's a lot of time taken up by our deflection specialist. We're just trying to find creative ways to solve that problem with the BJA grants. The COSUP grant is just a direct expansion of her program. Each grant is about $250,000 annually. And right now, there's nothing specific that we have proposed because of the collaborative efforts with the other departments. I just want approval to go ahead and start doing that.
Yes.
Is there any matching grants, any dollars that we have to match with it?
No match.
What is the reporting metrics? Is there any reporting that we need to do afterwards?
Yeah, so there will be grant reporting needed. We just don't know the metrics that we're looking at yet until we do more collaborative efforts with the other departments. So we definitely would report what our goals are at that time.
Okay. And is it quarterly, monthly, biannually?
Sure. Usually performance measures are biannually, where some data is quarterly and some is biannually for each grant typically.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes. Sure.
Just again, and to talk through a little bit of process, Ruth laid out, really this is early in the game. We're coming to you and the district attorney's office is asking for the ability essentially to do that collaborative work that Ruth laid out, really sit down with those other county entities, whether it's the sheriff's office or stakeholders and partners like North Central Healthcare and others, to develop the grant proposal. As with any grant that is not part of your annual budget that has already been approved, this would require a budget amendment if we were so fortunate to be awarded these grants. So the county board would have, and this committee would have the opportunity to take another look to address a lot of the things that Supervisor Zhang just asked, to get greater information relative to what is the grant application, what are the things we're essentially signing on to do if we do accept the funds, but also understand some of those reporting pieces. So early on, we want to make sure we're not going down a path that at the end of the day, this committee would say, hey, we were never really all that interested in doing it in the first place, but you will have, I want to be very clear, this will come back to you if and the full board, if we are so fortunate to be awarded the grant. Because again, it would have to go through your budget amendment process.
So, Corporation Council question. Are we referring these resolutions to the Finance Committee? No, just approve the, okay. Any more comments from anyone? Okay, so we will need a motion to approve the BJA FY25 grant, Improving Adult and Youth Crisis Stabilization and Community Reentry Program. Need a motion. Jason?
Second.
Second E, okay. All in favor? Aye. It's passed. B, BJA F25, Improving Substance Use Disorder Treatment and Recovery Outcomes for Adults in Reentry. Jason, motion. Deb, second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. And C, BJA FY25, Field Initiated Encouraging Innovation. E, and Deb with a second. All in favor? Aye. D, COSIP 24, Wisconsin Deflection Initiative. Jason, I need a second. Deb. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, 6B, discussion and possible action by Public Safety Committee to forward to the County Board for consideration. B1, establishment of 12.04 Assemblies Ordinance Fee Schedule. And we have Shad here from CPZ to explain this to us.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. I did also want to mention, I believe this does not need to be forwarded to the county board. It's just an action that the committee takes to approve the fee schedule. But 12.04, our large assemblies ordinance that was just passed in January at the county board level, part of that passing required a fee schedule to be established. Historically, the fees associated with the large events were housed in 12.01. And With the resolution that was passed at the county board, it was essentially to establish a new fee schedule. What you have in front of you there is the proposed fees. Talking with the other departments, we're proposing a fee of $500. Historically, the fees for large assemblies were kind of structured in a tiered method. So depending on the number of individuals, there was a different amount associated with how much that assembly. We don't feel that whether a license for a event that's going to be for 5,000 people versus 50,000 people is going to be a too much bigger of a lift for the county. So our goal here is just to recover our costs associated with the review. I guess essentially the next action, it would be the county board or the committee here to approve this, and then this would be the fee that's established for large events.
Supervisor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question for Chad. How is their fee compared to other counties that are similar to our size?
So honestly, the fees for large assemblies varies depending on the county. We are higher than some, but we are also lower than some. It kind of varies depending which county you're looking at. What we try to do is just be realistic on how much a review is going to cost to go through, depending on the department, because there'll be multiple departments that have to review these. And we just want to ensure that the county does recover the cost of those reviews.
If I can offer one additional piece of information, just like Shad referenced, our historical practice was that tiered structure based on size of event. Just for context, the lowest tier of that license, which again historically was from 3,000 people to under 10,000 people, that fee was $500, so consistent with this fee. And then the fee amounts, the license amounts would go up to $800 for an event between 10 and 25,000, $1,200 between 25,000 and 50,000, and 50,000 people and up was $1,500. So it is a simplification. Essentially, it does away with that tiered structure for the reasons that Shad referenced.
Follow up, Madam Chair. So just want to clarify this. For other counties our size, is the fee fairly close? Is it fairly close to what other counties are that's our size?
I would say if you average them out, it's fairly close.
Okay, thank you.
Any more comments? Okay, we need a motion to establish the fee schedule for 12.04 Assemblies Ordinance. I'll make a motion. Somebody want to second it? Deb? Okay. Yes? Really? Okay.
I'll make the motion.
And Yi and Deb, okay. Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And this does not have to go to the county board. Okay, thank you. B2, increase of medical examiner fees as permitted by state law. And we have our medical examiner, Jessica Blahnik, here to tell us about this.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. So last September, we came forward to increase our fee based upon the consumer price index from the 2022 to 2023 year. Now we're just, part of that resolution was to bring this forward annually. So I'm just bringing it forward annually. The consumer price index from December to December 2024 was 2.9%. So that would increase our fees to $283 per cremation permit or per disinterment permit. It is estimated to bring in an additional $8,600 in revenue per year.
And this is just part of the, like Jess said, kind of the plan with respect to ramping up for operations for our Regional Forensic Science Center. The board, when it gave us direction to go forward with the business plan, was to identify what are the steps really to make that effort not require additional tax levy support, and these annual fee increases, which The process is laid out in state statute as to the process that the county needs to go through. So unlike the previous issue that was just before you that did not need to go to the county board, the reason you might be asking yourself, why does this fee increase have to go to the county board and the last one doesn't? I would respond saying, great question. And I would say state statute is the reason. State statute requires that the action be taken by the Board of Supervisors. So as Jess said, this is something that you'll see on a recurring basis to make sure that we're keeping pace with what are those revenue streams that we need to tap into to minimize the need for independent tax levy support.
Any questions for our medical examiner? Okay, we need a motion to refer to the county board increase of medical examiner fees as permitted by state law. Jason, with a motion, Deb with a second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, 7, educational presentations and committee discussion. Introducing our new DA, Kyle Mayo, and he is also going to cover B, State of Wisconsin Justice Coalition 2025 to 27 State Biennial Budget Proposal and discussion of potential action by this committee.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. Sorry I wasn't here in January. I was actually down at the State Patrol doing a training for some state troopers on legal update, but I wanted to come and introduce myself. My name is Kyle Mayo. I'm the newly elected district attorney. A little background, I have been in the Marathon County District Attorney's Office since the end of 2012. So I started in November of 2012 doing traffic OWI cases and then transferred to a general caseload, took on the drug trafficking cases after Administrator Leonard left the office, and then I did domestics and sexual assaults, back to the drug cases for a while, and then the past year was on a sensitive crime again, domestics and the sexual assault cases. I've done homicide cases, both Len bias, so drug overdose cases, and also intentional homicide cases. So I've kind of had a little bit of a hand in all sorts of cases that come through the office, work with law enforcement on training, law enforcement officers in the county as well. I also have my Deputy District Attorney, Roy McGarry, in the back. I want to introduce him. You might see him at meetings if I'm unavailable. He's been with our office for several years now as well, and he currently carries a special victims unit, so domestics and sexual assault caseload. That's one of the things, I'll get more into this in the budget update, but our office has a Deputy District Attorney who is administration kind of second in command, but that person also carries a full caseload. So they carry a caseload that every other prosecutor carries, and then on top of that, they work on the administrative side of it as well. So we're hoping, kind of moving into the budget, the state budget is comprised of the district attorneys or the assistant district attorneys' salaries, and as well as our IT needs. So our computers, our software, and our printers are state funded, and then the salaries of the attorneys. And then the rest of the office is funded by the county board each year through our office's budget through the county board. So we work as a state to work on the budget on the state level. And one of the things we're asking for this year is to transition the ARPA-related attorneys. So we have a limited term attorney that goes through the end of July this year. We're asking the state to create a full-time position in our office for that person. There's, I believe, 28 in the state. We're asking those all be transferred over to full-time attorneys. What that would allow us to do would be the deputy district attorney then could actually be an administrative deputy. His caseload would go down. He'd be able to focus more on the office, on mentoring new attorneys, taking over cases and doing trials with newer attorneys, and not have to worry about a full caseload of his own. So I put in, or asked to have included in the budget, the Criminal Justice Coalition budget proposal. The Criminal Justice Coalition is made up of the State Public Defender's Office, the Wisconsin District Attorneys Association. That's a statewide organization of prosecutors. I sit on their board at this time as well. The Association of State Prosecutors, which is the Assistant District Attorney Union, the Department of Justice, and the Director of State Courts. So those groups all come together and put out a budget coalition, and then each of those groups try and lobby for the things that are included in that. So we come together on kind of our main concerns with the criminal justice system to bring forward to the legislator. A couple of highlights in that under the Department of Justice request. They're requesting for the victim witness program. So we have victim witness specialists in our office. Right now, those are funded partially by the state and partially through the county. The reimbursement rate for the last 10 years has been between 40 to 56%. So we don't know that rate until after we've already paid, and then we get told by the state what that rate is. So the Department of Justice is requesting that that rate be upped to 60%. So the state would fund 60% of those positions, and 40% would then be funded by the counties. So we're hoping that goes through. That would help the county. That would save some money from the county for that program. So that's one of the things that we've, as a organization and a group, said this is something that needs to be done. The state needs to take on more of that responsibility for those individuals. They're also asking for additional crime lab positions. And while that doesn't necessarily immediately impact the county, it does in the progress of cases. There are many times where we'll have a case set for jury trial. We have subpoenaed a lab analyst, whether that be a controlled substance analyst, a alcohol analyst, or a DNA analyst, and they're not available. We can't have the trial then because they're not available. So then we have to push that trial off, and it just gets pushed on to the future. So we're hoping with those additional positions, they're asking for 19 additional positions, that it can, A, cut down on the time that it takes them to process cases, and then also more people can testify, hopefully more, and then our cases won't push out because of analysts not being available. So those are the two kind of highlights from the Department of Justice side. From the district attorney side, as I indicated, it's the funding of the ARPA positions and making them full-time. That would, again, help increase our county by allowing cases to move more smoothly through the system. We'd have one additional person in our office. We're also asking for our IT services. So as I said, the state is required to provide IT. So they compute our computers, our printers, all of our software. They provide that for both the attorneys and the county staff within the DA's office. So all of the computers in our office come from the state. Since fiscal year 2011, their budget has remained approximately the same. They haven't had an increase since 2011. The concern with that is technology has increased. There's a lot more subscription fees that are required. Office 365 is a good example. We now have to pay a fee for each of those that wasn't there in 2011, and the users have increased. So there's been additional staff that have come in, additional attorneys that have come in throughout the state, and they're really unable at this time to fund core services. So our life cycle for our computers, ours got pushed back, I believe it was 2 years, because they didn't have money to provide new computers to us. Again, that goes to how quickly they move, how we're able to process cases, how we're able to get new software and integrate into the new software that comes out, is having computers that work and are up to date. So that's one that, the second one that the DA's office is asking for from the state budget. There's a couple from State Public Defender's office that are in there as well. One is lowering the rates, or not the rates, but the amount that would qualify for public defender representation. So having that lowered so that more people would qualify for public defender representation. And there's some more in there that you can take a look at, and if anyone has any questions ever for either my office, what we do, or about this budget, I'm more than happy either today or in the future to answer this for you guys.
I think Kyle gave you a very good rundown of that, the Justice Coalition, and I think it's a great example of that collaborative effort that we talk about with the justice system partners, made up of a lot of agencies coming together to talk about what their priorities are, to not necessarily compete against each other, although everyone at the end of the day is always competing for state dollars, whether you're the director of state courts, the state public defender's office, the district attorneys, or the Department of Justice, right? There's only so many dollars to go around, but at least to have that conversation and say, hey, what are the most important things? So that document does give you a nice summary of all of those things, and Kyle highlighted some. The thing I'll say is why it's not on for action today, because certainly at some point, one of the powers you have as the Public Safety Committee and then also the full board is to offer a resolution either supporting in whole or in part budget proposals that are going through the state process. And again, for the state process, The governor should be releasing his budget in the very near future. I would expect yet this month, I think was the last we heard. But then Joint Finance, the Committee on Joint Finance, is going to take up essentially starting from base budget is, I think everyone kind of expects that to happen, right? So they're going to take in all of the proposals within the governor's budget, but really develop a budget on their own. Then it's going to go through the budget adoption process. So you have a lot of time yet to really take stock of what is in the governor's budget, but also then engage the state legislature and the state joint committee on finance and all of the legislators when it makes its way to the floor through that annual or biennial budget adoption process. And I think one reason why it's set for just discussion today. First, if you have questions, like DA Mayo said, please let us know and we'll pull that information for you. For example, hey, you might say, hey, DA Mayo, why is it important for the State Public Defender's Office when you talk about eligibility criteria? Why do we need more funding for that? Well, it's based on the poverty index from 2011. So like the need to invest more in IT than what was invested in 2011, the same is true for the poverty index. If someone qualified for public defender representation based on that index in 2011, the dollar from 2011 doesn't get you the same as the dollar from today. So we're happy to get you that information. But the second piece why I think it makes sense to digest this and then take a more measured approach is the Wisconsin Counties Association is coming out with their legislative priorities in the very near future. In fact, the legislative conference that you all have the opportunity to look at attending or at least certainly read some of the legislative papers, that's later this month. And I fully expect the number one priority for the Wisconsin Counties Association is to address what DA Mayo referenced, which is kind of the inequitable sharing of funding between the state and the county for operating what are state courts. It says Marathon County Courthouse on the building, but make no mistake, it is a state circuit court. Like DA Mayo said, we have judges are state employees. The DA and the ADAs are state employees. The State Public Defender's Office. This is a state court system, at least largely. We do have some things that make their way through the county ordinance process, but it's a state court system. And it was envisioned to be a good partnership, which not necessarily a good one if you're putting in way more than 50% of the resources. And counties are putting in way more than 50% of the resources. So the Counties Association, I fully expect this to be their number one priority and talking point with legislators. So I would anticipate working with Madam Chair to bring forward the information from the Counties Association for more discussion with this committee. But like Kyle referenced, the victim witness positions, those are there to support the state court operation. It was at least envisioned for that to be funded in large part by the county, or excuse me, by the state. That hasn't kept pace. There's a lot of things that states are essentially subsidizing. The clerk of court's budget, they're supporting the state court operations. Your annual allocation of levy to Kelly and her department is about 1.6 million. So the courts are a big part of what we do when people think about what are core government functions for counties. And it's really important. Our court system is vital to redressing grievances. But like Kyle referenced, everyone's always there's a lot of needs, and how do we allocate those and allocate the dollars to address them, I think is an opportunity for this committee and the full board to take a look at what does the Counties Association think is important, what does the Justice Coalition think is important, because at the end of the day, I've used this analogy with the justice system. It's a lot like running a restaurant. You got to have the right number of cooks, wait staff, tables. You need it all to work together. I could have a whole pile of cooks, but if I don't have enough tables, I'm not serving more food, unless I run some sort of food truck or something. But you get the analogy, right? You need to make sure you increase the right things at the right time. We can have a wonderful justice system that funds Kyle and the rest of the ADAs, but if we neglect the State Public Defender's Office side and people can't get lawyers, stuff is going to languish in the justice system. So it's really important to get that feedback, I think, locally within each of the counties, through the county board to your legislators, to help them craft a state budget that supports the justice system. So if you do have questions today or in the future, like DA Mayo reference, please just reach out. It's a complex system. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question is for DA Mayo. I guess the question I have is how can the county board support you in this role, in this effort, specifically with the State of Wisconsin Justice Coalition? I know that Administrator Leonard mentioned potentially a resolution in the future, but what else could we do to support?
A resolution in the future would be great if that's what the committee would like. Otherwise, if you're talking with state legislators to talk about these things, that's what our association is also going to be doing. We're going to be meeting with legislators throughout the state, finding legislators that are on joint finance that we can work with to hopefully get these items passed so that we can help the system.
Yeah, and I would say if you get, building on the same idea, if you have constituents that express a desire to fund and support the court system, that is very powerful, right? Encourage constituents to reach out to the elected members of the legislature. And relative to joint finance, my recollection off the top of my head, I believe we have 2 legislators that represent portions of Marathon County that are on joint finance. Senator Felskowski and Representative Hurd, I believe, represents a portion of Marathon County, but I will check that and get back to you.
Follow up? DA Mayo, if you can provide us some talking points, that would be greatly appreciated so that if we do talk with, whether it's the governor's office or the state legislators, we can provide some accurate information as well, too.
Absolutely, I can do that. I'll do that through, is that okay if I get it to you, Administrator Leonard, and then sent out? Okay, yeah, absolutely, I can do that.
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next meeting date and time, announcements and future agenda items. Committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. One thing I would like to do is meet our new jail administrator when he's available.
Yes, we will schedule that for next meeting. I know Sheriff Billup wanted to, we had planned to do that today, but Sheriff Billup is out of the office and he wanted to be there for that.
Jason?
We had a meeting with was it educational presentation by Truancy Court one time. Could we have something like that again for new members and find out what's going on?
Deb?
Yeah, I have a question or a request, and I'm not even sure who to ask this of. I'd like to get some kind of a list, and it only has to be including a month or two, of people that have court dates. And I don't want the names or anything, but I would like to know how many of them have a court date, don't show up, reschedule, don't show up, reschedule, don't show up, and they waste the court's money, taxpayer money, by doing that. I would just like to put together an analysis of how much money every month or every couple months that Marathon County loses for the people that don't show up. And it gets to be a game where they don't show up. I'll come next week, and then they don't show up. And it gets rather actually gamey to them. Because there's no penalties, or if there is, it's very minimal. I would really like to see down the road that these offenders have a penalty, and a stiff one. Like after the first one, there's a penalty to pay. You know, you can always excuse one. And I hate to go back to high school, but like in high school, if you miss something, well, then you better have a doctor's note. Have a very substantial reason for doing it. I really think that things are too loose in the court system, and they need to be tightened up. And more cases will be able to get handled expeditiously if we're not wasting people's time. So if you can do that, it'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more suggestions? Okay, next meeting, Tuesday, March 11th, 2025 at 1:30. Motion for adjournment, Jason, second. Deb, all in favor? Aye. Don't forget to come up and sign this resolution before you leave, please.